Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk about animation blueprints. And before we go anywhere, I want to say that, my specialty is really kind of animation more than anything. That's what I love to do more than anything else. Everything else that I talk about is are things I'm not an expert in, and the way whatever I'm showing you is just one way to do it. There are many different ways to do things, and I'm not an expert in any of it. So, and a lot of things are very dependent on what you're trying to make or what kind of game you're trying to make. So, I want to preface all of this before I jump into something as complicated as all this. And we jump into this, and this probably looks a little bit daunting. And I think when I do a video like this, I think my main goal is to just make all of this a lot less scary. So you can just jump in and you have some understanding of what's going on here. Okay, so this is the animation blueprint that is set up, and this controls all of the different animations for the bear. And I'll just give them a little bit of a side view there. So all the different animations, the idles, turn right, turn left, eating, sleep in, sleep out, all the different transitions for all these different animations. And that's why you see this spiderly, this like web of lines, because they all go to one, it's going from one to another node, okay? And then it's describing what the transition should be like, okay? Now, this we're kind of getting in deep here, so but I just wanted to give a quick overview there, okay? When you first start out, you're going to see something more like this, and we'll go through the steps real quick here. But I wanted to give you a quick look at like a functioning or an elaborate kind of animation blueprint. But let's make our own real quick here, and we'll step through things. And the bear is probably the more complicated, examples of something like that. Especially if you're just working on a little side creature and not your main characters or enemies or whatnot. So let's name this. I just let me step through this. I'm talking and not showing you. Okay, so let's just right click and go to animation and then animation blueprint. It's going to ask you for a skeleton, so just choose a skeleton down here. And we can start a new one. Call this bear animation blueprint. And you see the bear immediately. You can open this up and you'll get your animation graph here. And you do have an event graph, and you could code things in there, but I'm not going to talk too much about all of that because that's very dependent on the code that you're going to use to run your animal or whatever character. Okay, so we start out with this output pose, and we need something to plug into it. So we want to kind of like create a state. Get game state. Add new state machine. There we go. Plug that in, and we can name this whatever we want. Let's go back up here. Yeah, this is just, what do they call those things? Where it steps down, hierarchy. So now I'm in new state machine, but let's rename this so we can select that and go up here And, you know, a lot of people call it locomotion. So let's locomotion. And then you can even, can't you color it? No, okay. Entry. So you have an entry and you're going to like pull off of that little triangle, pull off, and then you want to add a state. Okay. So we made a blend shape the other day, so let's use that, or the one I made originally. And I'm just going to name this movement. There we go. And we can open this up, and now we need, you know, just like before, we need something that plugs into it. Now I could just plug an animation in, so I could just plug in a run or something. But this is going to be kind of the main movement controller. So I'm going to lay down my blend space. Okay, and if you see on the side here, I have direction and speed. So we need those variables to pull off of. And I'm just going to create two variables. Did I? Okay, two. And one is going to be speed, and one is going to be direction. I can go up here. Oh, what did I just do? Oh, direction. And they need to be float. Let's make this one a float. There we go. And then we can pull these out, get direction. Now this is kind of dependent on how you set it up too and what kind of code you're using, but it's basically it there. And then we can compile that. So now we have this all set up. So that's my motion, okay? But I need many more states for this. So I'm going to just pick, you know, hover over an area and click and hold and drag out. And then you want to add another state. Now, I want to have a separate idle state. So let me just name that idle. And then there is a transition for it. Okay? So this transition is the movement is going to be handling things when they're moving around most of the time, even though it does have an idle in there in the blend space. But this idle, I want it to be different because it's going, you know, a lot of characters have many different idles. So I want to do something a little bit different here and go sequence. Random sequence player. There we go. And plug that in. And then we can open, or it's already open there when you select on it. And you have entries. So I can open this up. And how many idles do I have? Well, let's just do 4. I have more. But let's just do 4. And then I'll open all these up. And then I'll just start dropping in animations. 3, 2, and 1. Just like that. And they all have blend in times, okay? 0.2 is not a lot, okay? So I usually go about 0.5, and so this is like in between animations, okay? And some you might want to have longer depending on what they're doing, you know? I think this one looks to the side right away, so I might want to go like 0.6 or something. I don't know. But it's good to always add in some kind of blend time. 0.2 is generally pretty small. Let's go 0.6 here too. And this one. Point, oop, 0.5. There we go. And the first one, 0.5. And okay, there's a little bit more to this too. We have chance to play here. So this is how often you want that animation to play. Like certain animations you want to play more often than others, you know. Like if they look to one side, you don't want them looking to one side all the time, you know. So you can decide how much. Now this is my original idle, which is kind of like the default pose of it. So I want it to be high, but not that high. So maybe 0.9, I'll make it. And then this one is looking to the side. So that one maybe 0.5. Yeah, 0.5. And this one is looking to the other side. So I want that one like 0.5. And the last one, I think he's sniffing up in the air. Or didn't I add that one? Well, who knows. But we can just go 0.7 maybe. So it's kind of in between. So it's going to play the first one more than the other ones. And, okay, what else? We'll do this one at a time here. Minimum loop count. Okay, so not only can you say how much that animation plays, but how many times it loops. Idles are usually looping animations, so you can tell it how often you want it to loop. I think if you leave it 0, 0, then it'll just play it once. I think. Doesn't always do that. I don't know. But if it's something you want to play kind of regularly, maybe the main animation, you might go something like 2, and you don't want it to go too long. Maybe 3. Okay. And then you can also change the speed of the animation. Yeah, you can have it change the speed randomly too. So you have a minimum and maximum. So I don't really want to change the speed of this one. Or most of them. But if you wanted to, you could do that. So this one, I probably only want it to play once. Okay. So these two, and maybe the last one, I'll just go 1 and 2 here. Okay, so that's kind of an overview, an elaborate overview of the random sequence player. But this is a very handy tool. I love using it. It's fun, and it's fun to dial in how often it does these things too. So we also want to compile after we've done all of that. And you see we're getting an error here. And we can actually click on this error, and it'll send us right to this. And it's showing us that we don't have a transition here. Okay? Because we don't have it set up to code. But we do have, when you just click on it and you don't double click and open it, you have a duration time between these two states. Okay, so we can adjust this. When it's going back to idle from a movement, you probably want a longer one. So it's maybe 0.6 or could be even greater than that. But let's make it 0.6. And, okay, we can also take this idle, because sometimes when he's idling, he's going to eventually walk. So we need a transition there. And this one can be, because sometimes if they take off into a run, you need that to happen pretty quickly. So this one can be lower, maybe 0.3 or maybe 0.35, something like that. All right. So from here, we could have turning animations. Now, we do have turning in the movement, but that's kind of more so to add a little bit in when they're moving forward. Okay, so we kind of want one that comes off of the idle so he can turn in place. Okay, so let's add a state, and we're going to name this turn left. Turn left. And we probably want another one. Turn right. Turn. I won't go through all of these, but I'll give you a general overview of how all this works. Okay, so we have a transition from turning. Turning can, you want it to be fairly decent. So like 0.5, we'll make this 1.5. Okay, and then the animation. So this is very simple. This is turn left. So turn left animation, plug it in. And you have to think about whether you want animations to loop. Always think about this. Don't just save it and forget to think about whether you want it to loop. A turning animation can loop. I've never seen any issues when it's set to looping, because sometimes you might turn right around. All right, so we can compile that. We're getting some errors because not everything is set up. So that's left, and now we need right. Right turn. Hook that up. And we need transitions. Okay. And these don't have transitions either. Okay, so let's talk about transitions. When you double click on one of those transitions, you need to, this transition decides like why it would move to movement. Like you have to give it a reason to get there in a way. So how are we doing this? Let me close some of this. And there are many ways to go about this. This is another one of those things. It really depends on what your code is doing and how you want to do it within your code or your setup, or you could use something different like a behavior tree or something like that. So all of those things kind of do things in different ways. I'm just going to show you how I am doing it, and let's remember that this is just how I am doing it. If you want to know how to handle code for AI and all that, then don't exclusively go off what I do. Okay, but this is how I'm doing it. So I have a blueprint here, and it's just one blueprint that kind of like decides everything. Okay, and but we don't really need to look at all this, because the thing that hooks up into my animation blueprint is this brown bear enumerations. Like, so this one has all the different transitions and animation states for the brown bear. Okay. And literally it's super easy to set up. You just right click and where are we at? Blueprints. Yeah, enumerations right there. And then you just open that up, and you can name just by hitting new different states. So running, might want to capitalize that or whatever, but this is just an example. So idle, okay, but I'm not going to use this one because I already made one, but it's super easy to do. Let's delete that one. So we'll just open up this one. So I have a roaming state, I have an eating state, sleep in, sleep out. Now let's remember, this bear is probably one of my most complicated ones, and all of my animals that walk around include an AI system. Now, this is just something for you to use. You don't have to use it. It might not be the perfect AI for you. and it might not be efficient enough for you to use. But I'm still giving an AI system so that if you're doing some concept stuff, you don't want to have to sit down and code a whole bear or whatever. So that's why I'm including this AI system with all of my animals. And I'm working on birds right now. Okay, so we have an enum. Okay, so let's open up our blueprint again. And I need our animation blueprint, this one, this animation blueprint. And I need another variable to reference that enum. Okay, so I'm just going to call this bear enum. Yeah. And it's going to be, oh no. It's going to be an enum. So if we look here, brown bear enum. And there we go. Now, if I pull this out, okay, get bear enum, and then I pull off that and type EQ, or you could just use the equal sign, and then you'll get down here equal enum. There is my list, so I could go running or roam, eating, sleeping. All of my options are there. So this one I'm going to use roam, and I'm going to pull off of here, and I'm going to say and hit enter, and I'll get an and boolean where it can make a decision, where it's going to say if he's in roaming state and he's not moving, okay, and speed, get speed, equals EQ. I always type this stuff in. Equals, now we're going to movement. Okay, so this is actually the wrong one. We want to go greater than. So I just type in GRE and greater than float, and then that plugs in there. So if speed is greater than zero, and it's roaming, it's in roam, we do this. We go to roaming. Okay? So that's kind of how that one works. Okay, so that's that one. When you're going from idle to roaming. Okay? Now, when we go back to roaming, okay, we want to do the same thing. Here, get. I always type EQ, roam, and then my speed, get speed, needs to equal 0. If in roaming mode and speed equals 0 and speed equals 0, then we go to idle. All right. So now turning is a little bit different. So we have a direction when turning. Okay, we're turning in a specific direction. So get direction. Now, turning can be a little bit tricky, and what I tend to do, and this, it's kind of funny how all these different game engines kind of have the same things, the same issues. But, okay, so I'm going to use, we're turning left. So I'm going to type in less than, okay, less than float. If direction is less than, and I'm going to say negative 0.1, could go a little bit higher too. Okay, and the only reason I do that is sometimes the turning can be touchy and move around. Speed generally, if speed is 0, then it's 0 usually. Okay, and if speed is above 0, then it's usually above 0. So speed generally doesn't have a problem, but turning left and right does. So you gotta give it. You usually have to give it some kind of play. Okay, so that's why I add in if direction is less than negative 0.1. Okay, so if it's negative, pretty much anything negative, it will turn. Okay, it will play this animation. So let's save that. Let's save that. All right, so back to locomotion. So now we have both of those. Now we have turning. Now we have to do the other side. So get direction is greater than, where did I type that wrong? Yes, greater than. And the same thing I'm going to do here, but instead of negative 0.1, I'm going to just say 0.1. Okay. And then, so if direction is greater than 0.1, compile that. Okay, so now we have all of those transitions worked out. And sometimes when you turn, you might go back into idle. So we need that transition. So, actually, we don't have to do that. I'm pretty sure I only have to do this. So equals. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just copy this. Okay? Because you're going to use this a lot. Okay? If you're making one of these. Okay, so if the state is roaming, go back to there. I don't think you really need to tell it whether, because it's either turning or it's not turning. Okay, so the transition back to here, same thing. So I already copied, so now I can just paste it in. Bam, there we go. Okay, now we need transitions to other things. Just like that. And remember, we have a blend time, so let's go 0.4, something like that. Because you're going into movement, and this movement is generally faster than like an idling state. So you don't want to go too high with that. And did we get the blend time here? We need this to be like 0.5. 0.5. And we probably need one there too. And 0.4. And why do we want to go here? We want to go here when speed is greater than 0. But we probably, we could do this. Probably should. So and then click here and paste that in. Let's switch these. There we go. If state is roaming and speed is above 0. There we go. Compile. And we need the same thing here. So let's paste in that part. Go and speed is greater than 0. Yeah. All right. And there's going to be times where you're going to go movement from your walking state into a turn. So we need that. maybe 0.5 for that one. Same thing over here. 0.5 for that one. And we need the transition. So we just need, again, get direction. This is turning right, so greater than 0.1, because we got to add a little bit to it, or else you could have issues. Doesn't mean you'll always have issues, but you could. And this one too. Direction. Yeah, this is going to be a long video. I need less than. And -1. Okay. What else? So now that's kind of the basic setup for walking around, idling. You know, now if you want to add more to it, now you need more, options, basically. So maybe I'll just do one. Yeah. I'll do dead. Because a lot of times, well, I don't want to drag that in there. But I need a new state. It won't let me just delete it. Delete it. Okay. So let's just add a new state. And we're going to call this dead. Dead. Or not dead. Let's not call it dead. Let's call it death. Death. Because this is going to be as he gets hit. You could use kind of the death as a hit reaction or something like that. You could. But this is kind of death. Death ends up being looping animation. So that's why you want kind of two animations, death and then dead. So dead can just loop on the ground like crazy. Whereas if you did it all together in one, then you'd kind of have to like do some clamping or something funky to not loop and make it jump back up in the air and do its death again. So that's why you kind of split up these two animations. So here we're going to move from idle, because sometimes he's going to be idling and then go into his death. Okay. And we need an animation for that. So we can choose death. Just like that. And this is an animation. Remember I was talking about you got to think about whether the animation loops or not. This is why. Because this animation, the death animation, you don't want it to keep looping over and over. Okay? So you want to turn looping off there. And then eventually, after he finishes the death animation, he's going to go into the dead state. So we want to add a dead state. Dead. And then this one's going to flow into this one. And let's set up the transition for this is going to be dead. So compile that. And this one is going to be death. So that's all set up. And what do we want this? Probably 0.5, some, around there. Maybe 0.4. 0.4. Because the death reaction happens very quickly, so you don't want to make this so it almost covers it up. Maybe 0.3 would even be better. Okay, and then this transition could be anything really, but let's just make it 0.4 because they're usually matched up perfectly. So, and compile that, and then like if you could have this end, and then could you have it end? I mean, if you were spawning and respawning it after the death, then you probably wouldn't need to make a new connection here. But let's just say he wakes up. He's a zombie bear or something. So now we could do a transition here. It would probably need to be long because he's lying on the ground, 0.8 or something like that. And what would make him move there? Well, he'd have to be roaming, right? And he'd have to be moving in roam state and moving. So, and speed is greater than 0. Just like that. All right. Now, a death animation could come from a lot of different directions too. Okay, so he could be running and then, get hit. Okay, so we need something here, maybe 0.3, and then again, this is just another state from the enum, death. And it could be in the middle of turning because it could see, the enemy coming and be turning. So we need the same thing here, death. Same thing from the other turning. See, this is where you start to realize that it gets... it can start getting hairy really quick. Okay, so why would he go into there with a state? Okay, from the enum. And did I do that one? Yeah. Okay. And usually, if you forget anything, this is why I love these, how this is set up in Unreal, because it just makes it super easy. Like, we must have forgot to set something on here, because if we forgot to connect that. Look at that. Oh, this is like such a game saver here. Did we not? Oh, we didn't hook that up either. Okay. What's this? Dead. We don't have a dead animation. So dead, and we do want this to loop. All right. And we're clear down here. We have all of our transitions. Now, of course, we could add so much more to this. But this is kind of the basics of how all of this works. Is there a way? Well, we can just take a look, because it's all the same thing. If we just look at this scene playing, and this is using my kind of advanced animation blueprint. So that one's over there eating. This guy's roaming around. Do I only have 3 bears? This one's eating. Roaming. Oh, it just saw me. Tried to swipe at me. But that's what that animation blueprint is doing. It's telling it how the bear should transition from animation to animation and why it should transition there. I think that's a look at animation blueprints today, though. Oh, he's coming after me. See you guys later. Have a good one. Oh, and before I leave, If you appreciate these videos or if they help you in any way, please check out my products. I have products on Unreal Engine. If you're a Second Life user, I have products in Second Life. If you just need a Unity product, something for your Unity game, then I have Unity things on my website as well as other things. All right, so have a good one, everyone.